Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. And it's a great day for the Pirate Broadcast, where we obviously bring you interesting people doing interesting things. And you know, we're all going through this challenge together in this environment that we're in. And I think one of the best things that we can do is continue to learn and expand our skills every single day. And today is a special day for a lot of people that may consider writing, that may not have necessarily the confidence to write in a way that they want to write. So Joshua, today we're going to talk about ghostwriting. He's certified. He's won all kinds of awards, and he's a TEDx speaker and an amazing individual that I wanted to share with the pirate community. Joshua, good morning. How are you this fine day?
Good morning, Russ. I'm doing pretty dandy. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
Excellent, excellent. And it might be evening. I know we have pirates all over the world, so whatever time you're watching this, or if you catch the replay, reach out to Joshua and make sure that you're connected on LinkedIn. I'm sure that you're hanging out other locations. Where can people reach out to you, and where is it easiest to reach out to you, Joshua?
A lot of folks love my YouTube channel. I have over 120 free trainings on book writing, book publishing, book marketing. My YouTube channel, which is easily found over at Joshua Lisec, Lisec is how my surname is spelled. And then I have several free tools for authors on my website, which is entrepreneurswordsmith.com. Entrepreneurs is plural, and Word and Smith are very simply wordandsmith.com, like a book ideas generator. So let's say you've been thinking about writing a book, like 81% of people, according to the New York Times, that's how many of us want to write a book. But maybe you're like, is this idea actually going to go anywhere? Does it have legs? Well, you plug your idea into my book ideas generator, and it will use a little fun algorithm to generate a title that is based on the formulas of New York Times bestsellers.
That's fascinating, because there's so many people that you talk to. You know, I've networked over the years, and right now we're kind of in a quiet time. And it's, for me anyway, and my goal is you know, it's a creative time. You know, are you finding the same thing, that a lot of people are improving their skills or practicing their skills? And what kind of recommendations can you make? I mean, your YouTube channel is a great resource. Is it just sitting down writing? I mean, you know, practicing writing is, you know, reading and writing and some of those skills. So how can someone that's thinking about it in the back of their head just kind of like, what's the first thing that we can do to start developing that muscle in that skill set?
I can tell you something very surprising, which is the fact that having a goal of writing a book is a terrible idea. And the reason why is, anytime you have a goal without a path to get there, probably not going to make it.
Yeah.
I have ghostwritten over 45 books for authors on all topics, from science and technology to health and wellness, business, even a few personal memoirs here and there. I follow a book writing system. A lot of authors come to me because they've tried to start that process themselves. They get into a couple of pages and they seem to run out of steam, or at least perceive themselves as running out of ideas. And so they start self-censoring, and it's like they're editing themselves and like, this just isn't right. Where am I going here? That's why I recommend following a system before anything else. And there's two different systems, one for nonfiction authors, one for fiction authors. If you're writing a memoir, sharing your own personal story, guess what? You should be following the fiction book writing system, the novel writing system, which follows the 3-act story structure. That's what all best-selling fiction uses. All movies and television shows that you appreciate, that you're a fan of, they all follow that structure. So your story should as well.
That's fascinating, because I'm a huge fan of systems. You know, the Pirate Broadcast, I hope that you found it easy and accessible, and you know, there were notifications and, you know, clues to let you know where to go and when to be there. And I mean, I don't have a lot of structure per se around the content of the show, because I want to have it very conversational. I want to have it open in ideas and the opportunity to expand where it goes. The conversation takes it.
And
And
that,
go ahead.
I was gonna say that, like, that creative outlet right there that you're describing is so important, where like the brilliance of you and your guests comes out. It's the same with authors. By having, in your case, you've got systems, you've got boundaries, how it's gonna kind of go. Those borders allow for creativity to flourish. And it's the same with the book. When you have thousands of ideas you could write about, you feel overwhelmed, like, where do I start? Which one's good? Which one's not? But if you have a vetting process for which ideas are terrible, and sift out the ones that are commercially viable, keyword. If you're thinking about writing a book right now, everything should be filtered through. Is it commercially viable? Basically, is there an audience for this? Will people buy this book just based on the title and the subtitle and the premise alone? So if you can filter everything you write through that, you have creativity. You have an open space to just run with your ideas as far as you want, because you're writing about the right ones.
Well, I think it's also part of the, what you're speaking of is kind of like this framework that you're putting a framework around the process, but not the creativity. So it's something that it's a guide, and it's really it's fascinating to me and I want to learn more about this, because okay, for like a technical book, like if I were to write about live streaming, in a subject, which it's kind of a dangerous subject because it could change 6 months from now. By the time I finish the book, everything could change. And so how do authors navigate through those kinds of subjects where they might be time sensitive? Is that something that you have navigated through and made advice for others?
Yes, time-sensitive topics are always a concern, because you don't necessarily want your book to have an expiration date, unless you do, and that's part of your strategy. There are several advertising experts who every year release an updated edition of, like, Facebook Advertising 101, Instagram Advertising 101, Social Media Riches 2020, 8th edition. And every year they just update the book with new case studies, new examples. So it essentially becomes kind of it's an evergreen product, because the people who bought last year's edition, they loved it. Well, they're going to come and buy next year's edition. So that's $5, $10, $20 you can count on year after year, when there's going to be updates. For something like live streaming, I would recommend a different approach, and that is the shelf life approach. So imagine you've got two circles. Imagine right now, Russ, you've got a Venn diagram. One circle here, one circle here. And this circle is everything you know about live streaming, okay? The technology, the system, the process, the setup, the presentation. Over here in this circle is that which is timeless about presentation on camera. Camera's been around for a while now. It'll be around for a while longer. So where is the overlap of those two circles? What could you write about the topic of live streaming that would have been true if you posted a video on MySpace 10 years ago? What will be true maybe 10 years from now, even if the app is totally different? So the timeless elements of live streaming, there's probably quite a few, which is maybe a system for booking guests. If it would have worked 10 years ago, and it works today, that's kind of a good rule of thumb, so to speak, that it will be relevant 10 years from now. So if you think about what you could write about live streaming from that perspective, you're not going to write about. You're not going to write about, here's the brand of product you need to use, here's the exact setup, here's the software, here's how much it is. Those sorts of things you would put on a website and say, for my latest up-to-date recommendations, whenever you're reading this book, go check out my website, piratebroadcast.com or whatever it is. You've got the latest, greatest affiliate links, of course, on the resources page on your website. You just update those. So most of my authors, I advise go that approach. That's what I would advise for you too with the live streaming book.
That's fantastic. That's gold for anyone that's listening in live or the replay. And I just want to mention that some of these techniques are, obviously you've tested these out, Joshua. You've evaluated the value and the impact and, measured results. So I want to ask you, I want to go down a little different path, just momentarily. Is
Sure.
self-publishing versus finding a publisher? You know, David, who's a great friend in the UK, he says, "I've written a book, but I can't get it published." And so, from my perspective, I've self-published on occasion, and I put stuff out there, and I allow it to, flourish somewhere. And I don't necessarily need permission, and that's not part of my design or my goal at this point in time. However, uh, it would be nice to be published. So, what are your thoughts around self-publishing versus being published?
Yeah, so traditional publishing, self-publishing, they both have the pros and cons. Just very quickly, the pros of traditional publishing for a lot of people is someone else does everything for you, up to industry standard quality. They're not going to put some slush pile quality book on store shelves. I mean, these things are vetted multiple times by multiple people. A con of traditional publishing, of course, is a timeline. It could be years between the time you finish the book and get a book deal
Mhm.
to when the book actually comes out. I help authors with both paths, and I'll tell you the self-publishing path, the independent publishing path, is way more popular because you have complete control over the editorial process. If you
Mhm.
enlist the support of book publishing industry professionals, they can make sure that your independently published book is up to par with the titans of the bestseller lists from the traditional publishing industry. Of course, another
Yeah.
benefit is that you get anywhere from 10 to 100 times more royalties per copy sold. $5, let's say, versus 5 cents. It's quite a big difference there. Now,
Big
for
difference.
yeah, I was going to speak to the question there from Facebook. If you're having trouble getting your book published by a traditional publisher, that probably tells you a couple of things. Number one, it may have to do actually with your promotion plan. If you've got a manuscript, or at least the makings of a manuscript, to approach agents or publishers, agents who will get you a publisher, or just a publisher straight away, you need a book proposal, which is essentially a business plan and
Mm.
go-to-market strategy document for your book. So a publisher wants to know you don't need them to make a lot of money off the book. It's authors who present a marketing plan so effective, the acquisitions editor at the publishing house looks at it and says, yeah, they're going to make us a lot of money, even if we don't market the book at all, because they're salespeople. They're looking for selling something that's easy to sell. So that would be the first thing. If there's not an effective promotion plan in your book proposal, or at least they're not perceiving it as such. Another
So
issue.
anything to make their job easier in your program and delivery.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would say another thing that could be kind of an obstacle between your manuscript and the traditional publishing industry is, it's not that the idea is bad or that the manuscript is bad, because I don't think there's any such thing as a bad book. I think it
Uh-huh.
may be positioned incorrectly. So, like, let's say this
Mhm.
book is a live streaming book, and you're approaching the publishing industry and say, "Hey, I want to write a book on the technology of live streaming." The agents can look at that and say, "Yeah, that book's outdated in 3 months. We're not going to represent that to a publisher." So it might just be you need to adjust the content you already have, open the book up to a broader audience, speak to more general themes so that you have as many potential readers as possible.
I hope that found you to, or I hope that you found that valuable, David, because that's gold. And I really, having had a little bit of experience around some other friends that are authors and, have gone through this process and, written writing the offer, and some of those book proposal can be more daunting than the book itself sometimes. And finding a publisher is definitely a job in itself. So if is that something that you help authors do as well?
Yes, in fact, that's one of my most watched videos on my YouTube channel, is how to put together a book proposal, get a literary agent, get a book deal, everything you need to know to get basically a traditionally published book. But it is particularly difficult if you don't know what you're doing. And as it is with anything, like it's particularly difficult to change a tire if you don't know how to change a tire. If you know the way the publishing industry works, what they're looking for, what they see as commercially viable, your chances go up considerably of getting a book deal. For example, here's a piece of wisdom that will set you apart from 99.99% of other authors. In a book proposal, your sample chapters, the first 3 chapters of your book, or first 30 to 50 pages, somewhere there, you include that with your book proposal submission. Well, guess what? That's the last section of your proposal. It's the last thing they see because it's the last thing that they care about. They want, the publishers and agents, they want to see your promotion plan. They want to learn about your platform, your expertise, your credibility, how you're going to sell this book, how realistic are your sales projections, who the market is for, how you know based on, let's say, search engine data for keywords related to your book on Google. Are they showing trends? Are there tens of thousands of searches a month with low competition? All of this stuff is, as I said, it's a business plan or a go-to-market strategy for your book. The quality of the book is almost, I say almost, it's almost irrelevant compared to everything else that has to go into your book proposal. And you're right, that is daunting. A book proposal can be upwards of 75 pages.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fascinating because what you're really talking about is removing the friction to the person that needs to sell this product. It's like, tell me a story, give me a roadmap that allows me to have great content that has broad audience that everyone wants, and the timing is perfect, and it's going to be flying off the shelves. That's the book proposal I want to see.
Exactly. The opening section of a book proposal is the overview. And funny enough, the way that we as humans buy things is pretty much similar across industries, across even what was being sold.
Yeah.
For example, my kind of hard and fast rules for what the first section of your proposal should do. Same with your query letter or your cover letter for your proposal, which would go out to a publisher and say, hey, look at my proposal, look at my book. You think you want to do a book deal with me? Well, what do you say in that letter? Interestingly enough, you answer the same questions you do if you're trying to get a TED Talk or a TEDx talk. When you're approaching a TEDx selection committee, you have to answer 3 questions on your application. These are also 3 questions you must answer in the opening pages of your book proposal, and of course in the query letter to agents to get their interest to sell you to a publisher or directly to a publisher. Here are those 3 questions. Number 1, what is your big idea worth sharing? Now, big idea, meaning this thing is huge. It's not something like live streaming is a great idea for business owners.
Yeah.
Like that's not a big enough idea. Think like
big enough.
Bigger, like way bigger. Maybe your big idea there, Russ, is something like why live streaming is the future of networking, something like that. And in this COVID-19 post-COVID-19 world, in-person networking will no longer be a thing, or will be severely prohibited. So along come you to talk about this big idea, which is live streaming will replace indefinitely most forms of networking, and that impacts hundreds of millions of business professionals around the world. Like that's a pretty big idea worth sharing.
That's a big idea worth sharing.
That's right. That's right. So what if you're pitching a TEDx talk or pitching a book? You got to have a big idea worth sharing that hasn't been shared this way before. If you're writing a book that's been written 10,000 times, or at least it kind of sounds like it, you know, top 7 ways to succeed in sales. Okay, that book has been written before a million times.
One more book about this subject.
Right. You don't want to write one more book about this subject. If you have a mishmash of book ideas where you're an expert in one industry that has application in another, that is magic. I'll give you an example. Let's say you are a trained hypnotherapist. So that's your world. You take hypnotherapy patients. But you also have a background in nutrition, exercise, fitness. You write a book about how to use hypnotherapy to lose weight, get healthy, get your body how you want it to be, etc. Boom. You've got a mashup of two entirely separate categories now come together. You have a big idea worth sharing. So that's the first question. Are we ready for the second question, Russ?
Second question. We're waiting on the edge of our chair here.
So if you want to pitch and get yourself a TEDx talk, or you want to pitch a book and get a book deal, second question you have to answer is, why is now the time for your big idea?
Great question.
So in the case of live streaming, you need to back it up with data. Let's show the percentages of network events, conferences, workshops, etc., that have been canceled across industries. And this might be a few months further along into this process where we see, let's say, for example, you find a statistic from Eventbrite: 95% of business networking and business conference type of events have been canceled and were not rescheduled. That affects collectively this many hundreds of millions of people. Having that data is critical, because now you can say, look, networking is dead. It's being replaced by live streaming tools. That's the future. If you want to get ahead in your career or in business, meet new clients, connect with the press, for example, you used to do networking. That door has been permanently shut by this disease. Here is a new way forward. This is a brilliant idea. It's about like networking and interpersonal skills plus this new technology. It's a brilliant mashup right there that has commercial viability.
And it's following the trend that is taking place already with some of the online happy hours and things like that. I mean, you're already seeing it evolve, and I just love the idea of thinking in a different way and processing that information in a different way and positioning it to, like you said, the elements of a TEDx talk are very similar to the book proposal. So what's number 3? What's number 3?
Get yourself a book deal, and also to pitch a TEDx talk, basically to get any persuasion avenue that you need to make in order to get what you want in life and in business. The third question is, why are you the person to share this big idea? So this doesn't just speak to your credibility. Like, do you have the experience? Do you have the business? How many years? How many degrees? Whatever. It has to do with your lived experience. So maybe you've done 1,000 live streams or some incredible number that demonstrates that you've got more than 10,000 hours of expertise. Or maybe you are an individual who is behind the movement, and you've actually consulted hundreds of business people on how to transition to online networking. There's something about your experience personally that's unique. It's not like you've got a resume here. Hey, look at my resume.
Right.
That's important, but being able to show you've basically walked the talk, so to speak, is super, super important. And yes, part of this is going to be your platform. Kind of the minimum number of followers that the publishing industry is looking for, smaller publishers, not the big 5, is about 2,000 people. So if could you put out, hey, I've got a book right now, and 2,000 eyeballs, give or take, will be on your book cover, you might have a shot at getting a smaller press, but still a traditional book deal. Maybe they'll pay you a $5, $10, $15, $20,000 advance. I've got experience in the traditional publishing industry at the higher levels. For example, Penguin Random House approached one of my authors because she had sold 30,000 copies of her book in just a couple of months of the release. So she had the results, the proof.
She had evidence that she could sell a book.
Right.
Could be sold.
Right. Now, everyone who's thinking, well, what are my chances? I really want a book deal in traditional publishing. Well, traditional publishing is the only way. Guess what my author did? She turned down Penguin Random House for her book. It just did not make sense to go from $5 a copy sold to 5 cents.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fascinating subject. Joshua, this is gold. This is gold, and I really appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to a couple of people here. Jeff Young. It's amazing that Joshua is just down the road from me in Dayton. So I'm not sure if you're connected. Jeff is an awesome individual. Nick Dorsey here in Arizona. Good morning. Wendy. Good morning, everyone. Juan, Letitia, how you? Andrew, good morning. How are you doing? Arcot, David Riley, thank you for that. Really found this helpful. So, Kenyatta, appreciate you being here. I love this. and we got Randy Martin in the room here saying hi. Roger from Seattle.
Hey, Randy and Roger.
And Gabriel, Gabriel's an up and coming live streamer. He's doing a lot of work, and he just got out of quarantine for a little bit. So, and then Arcot is on the other side of the world at his end of his day. So he's joining us from afar. And it's just amazing to me, Joshua, the process. And I'm curious. This is what I love to learn about individuals is, so how did this, I mean, this is kind of a niche area that you're working in. So how did you imagine this for yourself, or how did this evolve into something that you're doing full time? And it sounds like every level you enjoy what you're doing, and you love helping others, and the creative processes gives you fuel for your day. So how did you imagine this position and evolve into it? So I'm curious.
I became a ghostwriter completely by accident.
Somebody came up and said, "Hey, will you write a book for me?" And you said, "Why not?"
That's exactly what happened. But why did it happen? When I was a kid, my lifelong ambition was to become a published novelist someday. And I was about 17 years old when I started my first novel. Took me about 3 years to finish it, and right after that came a second one. So there I am with 2 books, and I was able to secure myself a 2-book publishing deal with an independent publishing house. There I am, 20 years old. Can't even drink. Thank you. Can't even drink alcohol at 20, and I've got myself a book deal. Now, as I'm going about doing events, doing panels, and signing books, and taking selfies with my new fans and readers, at the time, I built up a little freelance writing business on the side while I was at university at the time. This is at the end of the kind of the wake of the Great Recession. It's not like there's jobs being handed out left and right at that point. So I kind of had to find my own way, which is what my TEDx talk is about. If you'd like to check that out, folks.
Yeah.
So I've got this freelance writing business. I've got the book deal. I'm in college. And here's what happens. A couple of my freelance writing clients, independently of one another, they find out about my novels. They buy them. They read them. They come to me and say, "Joshua, those were so good that I want to have my story written just like that." Now, I want to share my life story, so it's not fiction, but I want you to write it in an engaging way like it's a novel. And I said, "Okay, fine, sure, I'll help you with your book." And something like 45 books later, I've been saying, "Okay, fine, sure, I'll help you with your book" ever since.
That's what you call career by accident, right? So, and and you're still enjoying it. You still love the process. You still love because it sounds as if you've gone through the process enough times to build the system. Practice a system, build a framework, and share that with other people as well. So that's
right. That's right. Every book is an exciting challenge because my job as the ghostwriter is to take the loosely connected ideas, stories, experiences, and premise for the book. Like, here's what I want to write about. So I take all of that and I say, how can we structure this and draft this so that it pulls people in? Very important. If they're not going to get pulled in, you don't have a book. You got to pull people in, persuade them to adopt your ideas. So use some clever hypno writing techniques throughout to get people saying, "Yeah, this is actually making a lot of sense." And then once they're into the meat of the book, propel them to take the next step. That is how you convert a book reader into a client. All of the successful authors that we hear about, the big bestsellers, whether they're self-published or traditional, they make hundreds of thousands of dollars or more off their book because the book drives people into a mastermind program where they can connect with other readers on the same journey or hire the client full time. I've got one author in Florida. He made $1 million from the book I ghost wrote for him over 12 months from people buying his book, reading it, and then joining one of his courses.
Yeah, a lot of people say a book is the best business card they ever invested in. So it's a great opportunity. So walk us through the process that someone would take with you. Is it a week, month, year-long process? I mean, what could one imagine about the whole entire process? And and the engagement and what the commitment is, and you know, the ideas and the concepts that have to be brought out into the book.
Right, right. Most people come to me with a little more than idea. So
Okay.
they here's my book idea. I've got a couple of chapters worth of notes here thrown together. I started writing and then I kind of went off into the weeds and I wasn't sure if I was even writing my book anymore, if I was just venting. I've got some interviews that I've done. I've got a course I've created. I've got an ebook I did, for my email list. Like they're starting with something.
Yeah.
And so what my first job is to look at, okay, let's plan out, let's have the blueprints for the dream home that is our book. So that's the
Yes.
very first step, is get the structure. What type of a book is this? Who is the audience going to be? What are the keywords you need to target? This is
Mhm.
very important. What are the
Yeah.
keywords you need to target throughout your book? So that if you don't do any marketing at all, people will still find your book on Amazon via Google or Amazon and buy it. So that is a killer strategy. Before you
Yeah.
write a book, you got to know what is going to sell, even if you don't market it at all. I've
Yeah.
got one author, he sold over 200 audiobooks in the past 6 weeks with zero marketing. His book's been out for almost 6 months now. No marketing at all. It's just from the keywords.
Just keyword research, a little bit of keyword research. It's absolutely critical.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's one of the very first steps in the process. So we kind of get aligned in this first month together. We get the outline clear. We know all the topics are, and then we have this interview process that can last several months. Usually 2 to 3 months after that, we're meeting once a week, sitting down together, and I'm asking you about essentially the holes in the outline. Like, where do
Yeah.
we need a story? We don't have a story yet. Where are some
Yeah.
practical advice you can share based on experience with the client that's not in your notes? And essentially, we fill out the book. Every meeting once a week is productive because we know exactly what we need to talk about and therefore what we need to write about. And every week or so, I'm sending a new chapter to the client. So once we're several months into this thing, they're actually starting to see a full draft come together. And
And they're
depending on
amazed.
their
They're amazed at their own story, I'm sure.
always. And the timeline can be anywhere from 3, I would say, to 6 months to get the entire manuscript done. If you're a book in a weekend or 30 days to a book type of a person, you're probably not going to end up with something that's commercially viable if you're
Hmm.
doing it that quickly and that hastily.
Yeah, that's great to know. So what's one piece of golden nuggets that I mean, you've dropped so many nuggets of knowledge here, Joshua. I really appreciate the opportunity to have you here and share this information. It's valuable. And I know a lot of people have thought or considered this. I'll send them your way. Later today, we'll have the post and the podcast up, and I'll put links in there for everyone that they can go and connect with you on YouTube and enjoy and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So, you know, and then ring the bell. So when he actually produces something, you know, next week he can notify you. So, and then also, you know, the website, some of the things that if you're thinking about a book, you're thinking about publishing, you're thinking about doing something along these lines, you know, whether it be a legacy book where you want to, you know, leave something for your future generations, or if it's some piece of information that you want to put out to the world because you feel it's important. These are all things that Joshua can assist you with. So reach out to Joshua, make sure that you connect, and you know, start the conversation. Discover what it is about your story that might be important to share. So I think it's absolutely critical. So what's one thing that you'd want to share with the world today to enlighten and bring some joy?
It's an unleashing that I would like to do. I would like to unleash you listening right now, you watching right now. What am I unleashing you from? This is whether you're writing a book, giving a TEDx talk, or doing a podcast, writing an article, any type of content creation, which you have a lot more time for, you're finding when all of the events and other activities are canceled, staring at the computer, staring at the phone more often. So I am unleashing you from your inner censorship, your self-censorship. You are loosed from that. There is no reason to say, "Ooh, I can't say that way. I might offend someone. Ooh, that's a little too edgy." You don't know if it's edgy or if it's offensive.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, my authors will say something like to me, Josh, there's no way I can put this in the book, but I'm gonna tell you the story. Like, that should be page 1, man.
Yeah.
The story you just told me. So if you would say to me, Joshua, I can't put this in the book, but here's a really good story. Yeah, that goes in the book. So anytime you're talking, speaking, writing, communicating,
Yeah.
when that little internal red flag of your self-censor goes up and it says you can't say that, you probably should, that'll offend people. So
Yeah.
what? It's more likely that that's going to get people to engage with you and say, wow, finally someone said it. I've been thinking that for 20 years.
I've been thinking that for 20 years. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Wishing you the very best. And as you know, everyone, kindness is cool. Smiles are free. And you enjoy the day. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.